using After Effects to create motion graphics templates. Motion graphics means pretty animated text, and a template means that you can make one thing and then add new text into it for whenever you need it. So I'll be making a motion graphics template for a title sequence. You know, all of those introductions of your favorite characters before a TV show? And my motion graphics will look something like this. We'll then take our motion graphics templates into Premiere to create an actual title sequence. The first step when you open After Effects is to create a new composition. I'm going to name mine Graphics Template. The next step is to create a new layer, a text layer, using Layer New Text. Then start typing. I'm going to say starring actor name because we're creating a title sequence. Now you can duplicate that layer by hitting Command D. Now you have a second starring layer, and let's change that word to actor name. There you go, you have two text layers. Now 20 seconds seemed a little long, so let's shorten those layers to say 6 seconds. And let's make actor name come in a little bit later. The next thing we want to do is animate our layers to make them appear to move on screen. We do that by finding the transform effect, the position effect, and turning on keyframes by clicking the little stopwatch next to it. And then you can add a keyframe by clicking the blue dot. A keyframe just says exactly where a given object will be at a certain point in time, or exactly how an effect is described. So our first keyframe, let's start it with a position off screen. And our second keyframe will be back where we started. So now it looks like it gets animated and starts sliding on screen. Yay, animation! Let's do the same thing for actor name, using the stopwatch and creating new position keyframes. And now let's see how it looks. There you go, perfect. Now, let's add a layer behind it by using Layer, New, Shape Layer. And I want a rounded rectangle behind mine so that you can actually read the words starring even when it's against, say, a lighter background. Let's Command D and create a second shape layer, and let's make this rounded rectangle pink instead. But our rounded rectangles aren't moving, so it might look kind of weird because our text is animated, but the rectangle isn't. Okay, I mean, actually that's kind of cool, but let's use parent and child layers to make our pink rectangle and our blue rectangle follow the starring and actor name text. So you see this parent link next to pink rectangle? Let's link it to actor name. And then same thing, parent link for blue rectangle, let's link it to starring. And prepare to be amazed. Now let's add effects using the Effects panel. You can find it by going to Window, Effects. I want to go under the Transition menu and apply CC Twister to the pink rectangle. Now we can keyframe CC Twister just like we keyframed Position. I like to start it at 0 completion and then end it at 100% completion because it makes the rectangle look like it's made a full flip. Now let's add a Venetian blinds transition to the blue rectangle. I like to start it at 0, go to 100, and go back to 0, so that requires 3 keyframes. But you can do your effects however you want. Now, let's see how it looks. Okay, I think that's pretty perfect, so now what we'll want to do is save this as a template using the Essential Graphics window. So in Essential Graphics, you're able to select a composition, we named ours Graphic Template, and then you can drag and drop different controls from your After Effects composition into the Essential Graphics panel. So each effect that you drag and drop will be fully editable in Premiere. I definitely want to be able to edit the text in actor name to say whatever the name of the actor is. So I'll drag and drop source text up to the Essential Graphics panel. Also, I would like to be able to change the scale of my text, so I'll drag and drop scale into Essential Graphics so it will be fully editable in Premiere. Let's do the same thing for starring. We'll want to drag and drop the text here, source text, also the scale of the text. And then for our rectangles, we might want to consider allowing the size of the rectangle to change. So you could make it bigger and smaller. You could also change the position in Premiere. That way, if you had longer text, you could move it accordingly. Now, the main thing to remember here is that only the things that you're dragging and dropping from your composition into the Essential Graphics panel will actually be editable in Premiere. So let's look through one more time and make sure everything like source, text, and scale that we might want to change is on this list. Let's rename it. I'll name it Super Cool Title Sequence. And now let's export it. And yes, I want to save. So I like to save mine to the local templates folder and hit OK. Now let's see what it looks like inside Premiere. So I've already brought in a little bit of actor footage, and all that I need to do is add the template on top of it. So just go to Essential Graphics in Premiere and drag and drop your super cool title sequence, which automatically loads into the graphics. So now I can see starring actor name inside my Premiere project. Let's edit that using the Essential Graphics panel and change actor name and starring text. Notice how everything we dragged and dropped into the Essential Graphics panel in After Effects is editable here. So I can change actor name to Carly, or I could change starring to co-starring. I also can change the position and the sizes of the rectangles. To create a full title sequence, you just need footage of every actor, and then you could copy and paste your motion graphics template, and then just write a new name for each actor, and voila! You have a title sequence. Now, this is the title sequence that I made using the templates we created in After Effects. And congratulations! We made a title sequence!
Alright, so what will we need to make this? First off, I've got my inspiration scrunchie. I want this to be a lot of fabric because I have a lot of hair, so I'm going to make it wider and chunky like this one. We also have a safety pin, 2 different kinds of elastic. You'll only need to choose one. I've got a hair tie that's a little stretched out, and then also just some elastic left over from another project. This is a little more decorative than you would normally need to use because no one's going to actually see this, but it's what I had on hand. I've also got a hand needle and some thread. So for time's sake, I'm going to use my machine for sewing for this video, but use what you have, and if that's a needle and thread, go for it. Also, I have my trusty straight edge and measuring quilting square, and then also these are some spring-loaded fabric shears. If you see yourself sewing a lot and you're going to be cutting a lot of fabric or doing other crafty projects, it's nice to have spring-loaded shears because they help save your hands. And they last a really long time. If you buy one pair of shears, they'll last you for years and you can get them sharpened when they're dull. And lastly, I have fabric. Let's talk about that now. So here I have 2 towels that I'm gonna reclaim these fabrics and turn them into something else. So it's really awesome using salvage materials because we're able to make fabric last longer instead of buying it new. Also, microfiber like this, it can get kind of expensive to buy. So if you can find an old dish towel or something made out of this microfiber material, and it is petroleum based, so it's not a natural fiber, that's gonna be a lot cheaper. And I love using what I already have to make new stuff. Over here, I have just 100% cotton towel, so this would be more in terms of terry cloth. We have our fabric in the shape that we need. So we just have a really long rectangle. So you're gonna pick one end and you're going to fold and finger press down a 1/2 inch hem. That is ready. It's not gonna keep it down a lot of the time on thicker fabric, but the fabric will kind of remember this crease and we will need this in a minute. So fold this down and flip this over so the fold is facing the table.
Okay, welcome to the GarageBand workshop here. Going to open up GarageBand, and usually when it opens up, you just want to give it a name. Save it as some new name so you know what to call it. We're going to save it as, we're going to call this Drum Jam. We're just going to create a simple drum beat that you could add guitar to later or make it into a full song. First of all, we're going to change the piano to a drum kit, and we'll use the one called Smash. And it's just got some good sounds. So open up, and we're just going to click the pads and see what is where. Figure out where all the sounds are. And yeah, there's everything in there. Figure out where the kick, snare, and hat and stick and all that. First thing we're going to do is change the beats per minute from 120, which is always, standard, to 100, just to kind of make it groove a little slower, a little easier to follow. And it gives you a little count off and a click track. But it's kind of hard to follow, so I'm going to go ahead and record my own click track. It's easier to follow, and it's just super easy to listen to, instead of the little blips that they give you in GarageBand. So I'll just record a measure or so, a couple of measures, and then listen back. But if you double click that region, it opens it up down here. You hit Apple A, and that's like all, and quantize this to 16th notes. So what we just did, our little click track, so it's going to make it perfect. It's going to be perfect 8 notes with a little click in there. Just easier to follow. Has more subdivisions. And then create a new track that's a duplicate track of that one. So it's the same drum kit. Then I'm just going to slide this over to the very beginning. So the click starts at the very beginning. And then click on this track down here. Once again, figure out where all the things are. That's probably what I'm going to do, is kick, snare, hat for now. So I'm going to turn that down just a little bit. Beginning, and then I'm going to record listening to the click track. You don't have to be 100% perfect, but you just need to be kind of close to it. And you can undo and do as many times as you want, so you feel like it's close. So I'll just stop right about somewhere in there. And then double click it, and it will open it up. And do it again. It'll open it up down here in the bottom, and you hit Apple A, which selects all the notes that you just did. Again, down 16th notes, and then it sort of magically lines everything up perfect for you. Sometimes you want that on just a basic rhythm, and sometimes you want it to be live sounding. You want something that sounds real, which we'll do in a minute. So we're going to create another track of percussion. But if you notice here, there's drums, cymbals, things like that, but there's no real percussion. So I'm going to go to a different thing on here, percussion. And then we're going to use Latin percussion. Now we're going to check out the pads. Now we got some bongos, timbales, and things. We're just going to create a bongo track to go with that. And this pad could easily be a keyboard. Just a USB keyboard would do the same thing. You just have to figure out where the sounds are. So you double click it and goes down in there. And then you hit Apple A. It selects all the notes. Then you hit quantize to 16th notes. It's always 16th notes is always a good place to start. And that lined everything up perfect. So that turned out pretty good. So we're going to create another track. duplicate settings on percussion as well, but this time we're going to do timbales, and we're going to do these live because we're going to play them kind of fast. We're going to have too much going on for it to quantize, and we wanted to make it sound more of like a live recording. So if I tried to quantize this track, it would be too square sounding and it wouldn't have the little fast notes in there. So if we go back and listen to it, it just sounds more like a live percussionist a little bit more. So yeah, this could have been used as a YouTube video, or it could be a backing track for a song. And of course, you can always plug a microphone into GarageBand and record guitar or vocals or anything you want. And that's just the very basics of GarageBand.
Hey, what's up everybody? This is Frank again. Today we were once again going to lynda.com, which you can find on the library website, library.nashville.org. And today we're taking a course called Designing Dynamic Layouts with Text and Dialogue in Comics with Ben Bishop. Let's get started. In the first couple videos, he introduces us to some comic terms, such as panels, gutter, narration boxes, and speech balloons. He also establishes some rules for writing, which is primarily left to right, top to bottom, and emphasizes that the direction of art and images will guide our eye through the story. In the third section of videos, he talks about using a script to begin laying out your page, and talks about how to write a script with dialogue and direction. And then he talks about how to start planning out panels from that script. He also emphasizes the importance of making space for speech in those panels. The next group of videos is all about pausing and pacing. He talks about how placement of balloons can affect mood and tension in your story. He even looks at examples where it's appropriate to not have any text at all. He talks about how to enhance action scenes with short, quick text, and how to direct the action with placement. He also mentions when overcrowding your page with text can add to the scene. In the fifth group of videos, he talks about narration and caption boxes. This is text that explains when and where we are in the story with boxed captions. You can also use these boxes for the inner dialogue of one of the characters in the story. The sixth group of videos is all about sound effects. He shows us some examples of good sound effects and how the illustrative delivery of these sound effects enhances the scene. He then walks us through the process of adding sound effects to your panel, including how to make the sounds look how they sound. The last big group of videos in this course is called Putting It Together, Designing Dialogue on a Comic Page. And here he talks about setting up a page on InDesign, which doesn't really pertain to me since I'm including my text on my paper, but he does have some really good advice on how to build balloons and boxes and how to fit text inside them, so I would check that out. Here's the script that I made, and then my rough plan for what I want the page to look like. Next time we will get into actually turning this into an actual comic.